Well, Joe and Fred, I'm glad to have an Old Testament scholar and a Trinitarian theologian here to figure out for us if the Trinity is in the Pentateuch, if the Trinity is in the first 5 books of the Bible. What do you think, Joe?
Well, I guess the short answer is yes, because God's in the Pentateuch and God is triune, so obviously God is there. But I think maybe there's another way of taking the question, which is the Trinity revealed in the Pentateuch? And there, I think the main answer is you have to wait until later, that is, until the definitive revelation in the coming of Jesus, in the coming of the Spirit on the church. But once you know that, you can look back in the Pentateuch and you can see that actually God is a triune God and always has been.
So, flat no, but later on, can you describe that experience a little bit? I mean, when you look back, are you reading, sort of falsely reading into that? Are you seeing things that you didn't originally see there? Are you these sort of X-ray glasses that now you sort of get the secret that you wouldn't have had beforehand if you didn't know about the Trinity?
Well, I certainly think that you're not falsely reading into it. And it's basically, it's the experience of maybe you have perhaps gotten letters from someone that you haven't met yet. And then when you actually meet the person, then as you read the letters, they're going to take on new meaning, and you're going to realize how the things that you've read in the letters are actually come from the personality of the person who wrote the letters. And so similarly, when you read the Pentateuch with the fuller revelation of that we have of God in the events of Jesus and the coming of the Spirit as described in the New Testament, you're going to see things there that you didn't see before, and they're real things.
Yeah, Fred, let me run with that analogy because I find it really helpful. If I'm exchanging letters with someone, the thing I'm wondering about is if we think about this in terms of letter exchange, that's a whole lot to hold back. As you're the letter writer.
Yeah.
If I am receiving letters from someone and I get that big of a revelation upon actually meeting them face to face, I might feel like they had been corresponding with me under false pretenses. I might question the very truthfulness of their confessions in their letters. So I might find it kind of alienating. What do you make of that?
Yeah. Well, what I like about the answer Joe gave is that it recognizes this strange twofold reality. I think B.B. Warfield famously called the Old Testament in this regard a room richly furnished but dimly lit. So like all the furniture's in there, but the lights aren't on.
Yeah.
And so to do a Trinitarian read of the Pentateuch is to borrow light from the New Testament to show what's really there. And maybe that's an artsy way to put it, but the question really comes down to, okay, so then using this sort of letter writing metaphor, I guess it puts the burden on you to have to say, it kind of sounds like Moses hadn't met the person he was hearing from. And when I'm reading the Pentateuch for the first time forward, it seems like he really met the true God. Yeah, so how do I handle that? Is triunity sort of an aspect of God he hadn't encountered, or?
Yeah, because there's that line in Numbers that says he saw the form of God. I'm loath to, I'm loath to say that I clearly know God better than Moses did. I mean, I don't think I want. Would you say that, Joe?
I think.
I mean, let's make Fred the subject. Let's not make me the subject. Does Fred know God more than Moses did?
I think
Better?
so. I think that on this side of Christ, and to use Fred's metaphor, the lights have come on, and we see things that we just didn't know about God. He's made them known to us in Christ.
And they're not incidental, strange little things. They're important things like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Yeah.
When Moses met with God, he came down shining. Fred may have prayed today. There's not a lot of aura. So what do we do with some of that kind of experiential testimony in the Pentateuch to transformative personal knowledge of God?
Well, part of I like that transformative personal knowledge of God, like that Paul says, like now we have seen the glory of God, not in the face of shining Moses, but in the face of his Son, he's shined the light of Jesus into our hearts, and so that illumination, Paul says, it's there. It's just not in the same physical way, but it's actually in the knowledge of Jesus. We come to know God in a more personal way and a more full way than Moses did.
Because in 2 Corinthians, Paul's really interested in that. Why did Moses shine? And don't we have a better revelation? Yeah, I would probably take my stand on John 1:18. No one has ever seen God. The only begotten one has made him known. I take that to be a hermeneutical guide. Looking back on the whole Old Testament, I would say, I'm well aware that Isaiah says, I saw the Lord. I'm well aware that God spoke to Moses as a man speaks to a friend face to face. And if John 1:18 is true, in John 1:18, it must have always been true. No one's ever seen God.
So what are they seeing? I mean, this is somewhat speculative, of course, but interpret that bit about Moses, God speaking to Moses as a man would speak to someone face to face.
Yeah, face to face is clearly an idiomatic expression for intimate personal communion. It's like prophets, I show stuff, and people have visions, but Moses I speak directly to. Face to face doesn't mean Moses' face was here, God's face was here. They were a certain number of inches apart.
What is the? I mean, can you speak then to what the positive reality is? If no one's ever
of Moses in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he is greater than any subsequent prophet. He's a high point of revelation so far.
Do you mean it's funny that you say subsequent, because right in the Pentateuch it says that there's going to be a prophet greater than Moses, and that actually, as you're reading through the rest of the Old Testament, you're wondering, is it Jeremiah? Is it Ezekiel? Who is this prophet that's greater than Moses? And looking back on it, we say, oh, I think I know who this is. We now know that Jesus is that prophet, and so that's one way in which the Trinity is there, right in Deuteronomy.
Do you think, kind of briefly in closing, but I want to get your answers to both this question, yes or no, do you think Moses would have been surprised that God is triune?
I think if you told Moses the story of the incarnation and Pentecost, I think his bushy eyebrows would have been raised.
Okay.
Mind blown, as the kids say.
Had exploded, that's right.
But then at the same time, there's been so many ways in the Pentateuch that God has been revealing himself as God, and God with us in His Word, in His Spirit, in His and so He's already by the way that He interacts with humanity, shown Himself in or maybe foreshadowed His Trinitarian nature.
That's great. I think partly it becomes incumbent upon us as teachers and pastors and preachers to help people see something of the magnitude of who we really have come to know. I mean, if our knowledge is the kind of thing that Moses would be jealous after, that's very helpful. Thanks.
The Torrey Honors Institute at Biola University. Biblically centered, great books, liberal education. More at biola.edu/Torrey.